Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. Welcome to Mirage Talks. Today, we're going to touch on the subject, the vehicles of the future, how the mobility world will change our lives. Principal, Head of Business Development and Value Creation, Mobilian Ventures, Anna Lazarevich-Eckstein. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get started.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I know it's pretty hard to spell my name, so yes, it's Anna Lazarevich-Eckstein. I'm based in Israel. I live next to Tel Aviv, 40 minutes drive. It's a pleasure to see you all, and I really hope you will enjoy this lecture. Unlike other topics in this world, such as, I don't know, cybersecurity or other topics, probably the mobility world is very close to all of you, because you probably have a car or own a scooter or something, and you go to work every day and you use it on a daily basis. So I hope that giving you a glimpse of the future and how it will look like for our children, you will find it fascinating and interesting enough. So let's get started. I will just say a few words about myself and my background. I've been working in the Israeli ecosystem for almost 15 years. In various roles such as business development, sales, and others. I worked in a cybersecurity startup, in an investment house, co-working space. So I was always working with both corporate startups and investors. So during this lecture, I will provide an overview from different angles, but I will try to focus on the investor side. So I really hope you will enjoy it. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end or write them in the chat, so we won't miss those questions. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I want to touch a little bit about the pace of innovation in mobility, right? Because if we're talking about the 1900s in New York City, as you can see on the left side of my screen, you can see a lot of horses and carriages and only one small vehicle in the middle. And this is how it looked like. And on the right side of this slide, you can see that only 13 years after, you can see only one small horse in the middle, and all the rest of the drivers are actually cars. Obviously not the cars we have today on the roads, but the pace of innovation in the mobility sector, I think, distinguishes between other industries and things that humanity managed to embrace during the years. So I think that this is very interesting, and maybe this lecture, will change dramatically, because maybe we think that the mobility world will look like something, but in a few years we will discover something else that will disrupt the whole market. So I think it's interesting to see how people embrace innovation in this field and how fast things change here. So as I mentioned, I guess all of you take your, kids or yourself to school, to whatever, to work in the morning. You go to the shop, you choose your car, the color, you choose the size, right? It's also a symbol of status. Like if you're earning more, maybe you will buy a larger car, a fancy car. And people are really attached to their car. And I would like during this lecture to tell you that maybe in the future our kids for example, my child that is 2 years old now, they're not going to really be connected to the vehicles. What do I mean by that? Maybe when they want to go somewhere, they will not use their own car. Maybe our kids will just, I don't know, use an app, order a car sharing service, or they will use something else to order a car like Car2Go or other cars that are on the street, and they will just open the app, log into a car and drive to the place they want to be at, which is very interesting in my opinion, because it's going to change the whole, you know, the whole feeling that we have to vehicles and cars, because we are not going to be attached to them anymore, and we're not going to have too many feelings to them, right? Because we're only going to consume them as a service. So we will touch upon it as the slides go by, and we will go back to this, but this is just as an opening to show you how we treat cars and mobility today, how we see it, and how it will change in the future. So, you know, when I tried to explain to my parents what I'm doing at work, they said, "Oh, so you're working with the cars, right?" And my answer was, no, not really, you know, because basically mobility, it's everything. So it's not only cars. So the definition in the dictionary is the ability to move freely or be easily moved. So basically, we are talking about moving people, moving goods, right? So it doesn't have to be people. It can be connected to logistics, to moving other stuff, moving, I don't know, aid or medical aid to people or deliveries. So I think that today mobility is very big and combines a lot of areas that we will cover soon. And, you know, when we spoke about the cars and the experience, we buy a car, we spend a lot of money and time in picking the right, you know, the right car we want to drive, or even a Tesla, or, you know, a smart car. And then, you know, at the end of the day, we are sitting, if you're living in a city at least, you're going to sit most of the time in the car, very bored, and you're going to spend a lot of hours on the roads. And the experience today while driving in the cities is very bad, right? There is no entertainment. You have to be in control all of the time. People cross the streets. There are a lot of accidents. So it's not a good feeling to drive nowadays, honestly speaking. I don't know where are you from, guys, but I know that in Israel we have a huge traffic problem. So I guess that this is exactly where technology and automotive industries are kind of converging. And why do I mean by that? So basically, the technology is here to help us enjoy a smooth mobility experience, reduce accidents, lower energy consumption and costs of transportation, right? These are the things that we want the most. And actually a lot of leaders, politics, everybody, governments are talking about it all the time, because most of the cities in the world are facing the same problems and same accidents and same bad experience on the roads. So today, when I'm going to say smart mobility, basically what I mean is that smart mobility is becoming a major piece in the puzzle of smart cities, infrastructure, energy, logistics, and many more. So myself, as an investor, when I want to invest in a startup, it might not be exactly smart mobility or in the car industry. They might be connected to the infrastructure of the road that is connected to the car, okay? Or maybe it's a startup that is helping to reduce the energy level of the battery in the cars. But basically, it's an energy startup. So today, as an investor, for example, I need to be an expert and have connections in the industry with many players that are not from the automotive sector only, which makes it more complex, basically. But this is how it is. Mobility, it's not only about cars. As you can see here in the future, we are going to move to flying cars and to airspace and other things that we never imagined. So what I'm trying to say basically is that smart mobility is basically everything you see in your neighborhood. Just to show you a little bit, let's dive into some numbers. I love numbers. I apologize for that. So I will present a few numbers. But, you know, a market research by McKinsey showed that there will be a growth in the smart mobility by 92% until 2030, which is a huge number. And the reason is both because the population is going to grow, but also the reason is that basically all this sector is changing now due to sustainability and a lot of regulations that are going to come into this market basically and change the whole picture and disrupt it again. As you can see here in the picture, this is a slide that I really like. Tesla is one of the disruptors I just mentioned, right? So Tesla came, and what they basically did is their net worth of $1.1 trillion, which, by the way, I think changed already because the stock market is getting crazy nowadays. But it equals or even bigger than all the traditional OEMs altogether, which is quite crazy. And obviously, there are a lot of followers to Tesla, Neo, Nikola, and Lucid, and many others that are following this transition into the EVs and greener vehicles. So I think that this is very interesting to see how one company came and disrupted the full market. Let's see more examples of trends. So let's dive into the trends of how it's going to actually look like. Okay, if we're talking about our kids, our next generations, how it's going to look like. So I believe that the connectivity is going to be one of the main factors that are going to lead this revolution. All the cars will be connected, will be able to talk to each other, to avoid accidents. So this is something very crucial. We will be able not only to connect to other vehicles on the roads, but also with the infrastructure. Okay, so we maybe would be able to charge the vehicle once we are driving and connect to the traffic light. If there is no traffic, maybe it will be green so we can drive. And we are going to be connected to all the governmental infrastructure that we're going to drive through. The second trend is the autonomous driving. Now, obviously, I hope that most of you know that there are levels, right? There is level 1, 2, 3. So currently, there are autonomous cars driving on the roads, but it's still not 100% perfect and working well, nowadays at least. So I believe that in the upcoming years, we will see more and more autonomous driving on the roads. A lot of Israeli and also other countries around the world, startups are developing now technologies and radars, leaders that are going to help the sensors become more advanced. So hopefully in the near future, we would actually be able to drive autonomously and have a better driving experience, but we are still not there. The third one is shared mobility. So this is a little bit connected to what I said at the beginning, that basically our kids are not going to own their car, or maybe they won't, you know, be so excited about owning a car. They will say, okay, it's like Netflix, right? Why should I, you know, own only one guy that is providing me content? Why shouldn't I work with Netflix and work with Disney Plus and whatever, and pay all of them, and then I would be able to use what I want at any time? So I guess that the next generation will use the shared mobility also for taxis, also for personal use, and also it will be connected probably to micro-mobility, right? So people would be able to jump from a scooter and then take a car and find their fastest way to get to their destination. And the last one is the e-mobility, which I hope you all see already on the roads. I don't think we have to elaborate on that, because most of the cars, at least in my street today, are electric. I don't know how it is in your neighborhood, but this is going very well. So we see more and more electric cars on the roads. I must say that the infrastructure, on the other hand, is not there yet. The customer service is not there yet with electric cars. There will be a lot of education needed on the workshop level to support this transformation, and also the drivers to have a better charging, for example, experience. So there is a lot to improve in this field, but it's going there, right? So a lot of countries committed that by 2030, they are not going to produce any more cars that are not electric. So I think that this is a big statement. And if you're planning to buy a car soon, so if you want to sell it in the next decade, you should hardly consider to buy an electric one, because probably in the next decade, we will see less and less fuel cars. Here on this slide, I kind of gave some examples from Israeli startups, from my small ecosystem here in Israel, in each of these fields. So connectivity, I don't know if you heard of Waze, navigation app. In autonomous driving, we have Mobileye, probably you know them very well. You have their chip probably in most of the cars in the market today. In the shared mobility, you have Get, Move It, Via. And in the e-mobility, you have a lot of electric cars and battery, and also infrastructure charging for vehicles, startups that succeeded very well. Some of them are already traded in the Israeli and global markets. And now I would like to talk a little bit about other factors that are going to be there in the future, that are going to affect our day-to-day lives. So one of them is the insurance, for example. So if in the past I had only Mobileye, for example, in my car that helped me, that, you know, the insurance company told me, okay, if you put a Mobileye in your car, I will lower your insurance. Then now, probably we will have more and more, you know, systems and services that once we use them, they will be automatically connected to the insurance company and would be able to provide, say, a faster aid in case of an accident, God forbid, or also in case of I just want to lower my insurance policy. So insurance is also going to be a big player in this revolution and help it to become safer. We will have obviously the data that will be collected, and therefore we will probably have more cybersecurity attacks, which is something that basically all of the OEMs and tier ones are afraid of. Everybody is looking for technologies in cybersecurity domain that will help to protect the car, so that, you know, people won't be able to control your car and take you to places you don't want to go to. So this is a very, very important to keep the data safe and stored, and not to bring it to third parties that might be dangerous. We have the aviation, right? So we will have all these air taxis. We will soon give some examples of how it's actually going to look like. IoT devices and small ADAS systems that you can put in the car or motorcycle or scooter, and that can help you navigate better or see things that you are not able to see without it. Obviously, logistics, okay, to move. For example, if until today, people that go to resorts, okay, on vacation, they take a cart and they need to get to a lot of places. So maybe it will be an autonomous cart that will take me to wherever I need to go, or it will carry the logistics of a hospital, you know, to carry some medicine from one floor to another. And obviously sustainability, that I will get back to it in a few slides. So just a moment. I have a slide here that okay, I just wanted to go back. Okay, so another trend, another additional trends we will see in the future are probably the hyperloops. It's not very common today. It looks kind of like a weird train, let's call it like this. It's very fast. It's going to carry people from places to places, massive amount of people. This is one of the things that are very interesting. We are going to have the mobility as a service, basically providing the ability to get from point A to B, right? Without the need to use different apps or something like that. You will have everything in one place, like Google Maps, for example, that tells you to take a train and then to take this taxi and this scooter, and then you get to the place that you need. And obviously subscriptions. So you would do a subscription to, for example, a car sharing or car to go service, and you would be able to rent a car and go wherever you want when you need it, and not keep a car and own it if you don't really use it most of the time. Obviously, we see a big trend around scooter, bikes, and walkability, which is a new trend around being able to walk safe in the cities. So this is also something that starts to grow. If you live in the cities, you probably see it very clear, all the municipalities are trying to work very hard on how to make it safer and keep people, safe without any accidents. It's very challenging in Israel. I know that I can tell you that it's really hard to control it nowadays. So also the age of the scooters is getting lower and lower. So there are a lot of dangerous sides to this as well. Obviously, we have the flying taxis that we are going to see more and more. As you can see here on the left side, there is also self-flying vehicles. So you would be able to just kind of, it's a little bit science fiction, right? But you would be able to get into this cube and just fly and take yourself wherever you want to go. Obviously, what is the biggest barrier at the moment is the regulation, right? Because you cannot really fly a taxi wherever you want. You cannot fly a drone, even today, wherever you want. It's just in specific zones that are controlled by someone that is reporting to the municipality, because it might be very dangerous, right? So I think it will take more time until we actually see these flying taxis and eVTOLs around us. But I guess that once regulation will come in, things will move much faster. I can tell you from the investor point of view that I know a lot of VCs that made investment in flying taxis. It's a hard market at the moment because they are raising tons of money and they cannot be active yet. They have a huge problem now. So I really hope that regulation will support it and help this revolution of the aviation continue as well. And the last one is the one in the middle, the bottom middle, the glideways. There are many types of glideways. This is just one example. It's a type of mobility that is, it's quite small, right? For 2 people, 3 people max. I think it's great also for impaired people and people with disabilities. So this is something that is going to be autonomous and in closed compounds. I mean, controlled areas, a road that is meant only for this vehicle. And I think that this is a great solution to kind of help people not to take their own car and just get out of their home and have a nicer and faster transportation option. And now I would like to speak a little bit about the smart mobility environmental impact. So as I mentioned, today, the biggest thing, by the way, in Israel now, during September, October, and November, I'm going to more than 5 events that are going to be around sustainability in general and sustainable mobility. So this is probably one of the hottest topics in the industry of mobility. You probably hear it everywhere, because basically the good news are that a lot of regulations, countries, and basically a lot of forces that are even bigger than the countries are forcing people and companies to report their CO2 emissions. And everybody wants to make all this mobility sector greener, safer for everyone. So let me show you some numbers. So you can see that the global transportation sector is a major polluter. And in 2020, produced approximately 7.3 billion metric tons of carbon CO2 emissions, which is crazy. So obviously, this sector needs some help, right, to reduce these huge numbers. And we believe, I can tell you as an investor, I believe that in the near future, a lot of investors will not invest in startups that are not going to show or to present that they're making this world greener and healthier for everyone. So if they have no sustainability factor in their product, it's going to be much harder, you know, to invest in them. So basically, I think that this is a huge, not only trend, but something we should take very seriously in mind, because I feel, at least myself, a lot of responsibility for helping this revolution work, right? Because a startup, if they don't get the funds from the investor, they're not going to succeed. But I think that this mission of helping them to succeed is much bigger than just the investors. So this is the reason why also a lot of countries are investing tons of money on this sector, because we start to understand that heating our world will not benefit any of us. So I think that this is a global mission to all of us. So even if you're not from the mobility industry, I think it's important for you to know that both the investors and the countries themselves are doing a lot in order to promote it and help to reduce the emissions. Just a moment. So as you can see here, in this slide, I brought some investment opportunities in case someone wants to read more. Maybe I can send it to you later. But basically, it is discussing a lot of ways and technologies that might interest the investors, such as technologies for fleet operators. The fleet, imagine, you know, a solution that goes to the private driver, but if we go to a huge fleet with a lot of, for example, trucks or buses or public transportation, it would probably affect much more the CO2 emission, etc. So a lot of technologies that are aimed for fleet operator, school buses, things like that, shared car sharing vehicles, all these kind of technologies are very interesting, and a lot of investors see in these solutions the solution in order to reduce the overall emissions. So this is how we look at it. As you can see here, these are just a few numbers of, you know, how much governments are spending. $200 million to provide 1,000 electric public buses to mitigate the emissions. So this is only one example. McKinsey estimates that 28 trillion of additional investments will be required to reach net zero emissions by 2015. So this is going, as you can understand, we will need much more money in this field. And this is only the beginning, in my opinion. So the future of the automotive industry presents many new opportunities to benefit from disruption, and incumbent players need to make fundamental and strategically vetted decisions now. This is a really nice sentence that I love by McKinsey that shows us that we need to make a lot of changes and improve things today. because otherwise we're going to be in a big problem. So this is definitely our responsibility. And I would like to end with a short kind of presentation of some startups and, you know, to kind of tell you a little bit in a glimpse about the Israeli ecosystem in the mobility domain. So I think these are the main mobility innovation centers in the world. So it's California, Europe, Israel, and China. There are a few more that are starting to emerge, but these are the main ones today. In Israel, actually, we have a lot of mobility startups, up to 800. So it depends on the exact time, and you know, some of them are registered, some of them are not. So around 800 startups. This is a sample of the deals that happened here in Israel. I just want to show you the numbers. So Mobileye was acquired by Intel for $15.3 billion. Moovit was acquired by Intel, $1 billion. Huge deals, great acquisitions. There are a few significant capital raises. StoreDot, it's a battery company, 130 million. VIA, $787 million. So as you can see, Israel is very active in the mobility industry. And not only we discovered it, but most of the automakers, tier ones, and also OEMs obviously know that. And that's the reason why you will probably see all of them in Israel. This is just a small part of, you know, the innovation centers and the scouters we have here in Israel that incorporates that are looking for Israeli innovation and are looking for new startups to help them solve their internal problems. I can tell you that just in one sentence, the fund Mobilian Ventures, we are basically a fund that invests in mobility. And as you understand now after this lecture, it means a lot of areas, not only automotive. So it could be also energy a little bit and logistics and others. But we are focusing more on the aftermarket. This is a very well-known term that describes all the services and all the services and the things that you can add on top of a car after the original manufacturers. So basically, after a car goes out of Volkswagen, for example, everything you can put on it, IoT, I don't know, any software, SaaS layers you can add to it. All this is named aftermarket solutions. So our fund is more interested in these solutions, but obviously there are a lot of solutions that are going to the original manufacturer. So in general, I think I will pause here. I talked a lot. It's kind of hard to pitch without a feedback and a conversation. I'm more used to ask questions and not to give a lecture, but I hope you enjoyed it. I guess some of you have questions or not. Feel free to ask them. I see we have some questions here on the chat, so I think I will need some help here with how we want to manage this, but I'm open to questions. You can see here my email. I'll be more than happy to answer some of your questions also after this lecture. So feel free to contact me and be in touch. I really hope you enjoyed. And any questions you might have, I'm here.
So thank you so much, Anna. That was amazing. Great content you were sharing with us.
Thank you.
And everyone, yes, first of all, they can open their mic and you can ask Anna directly or send to the message board. And Anna, you can see the message board, so feel free to answer as they come in.
Okay. So I see here one question. How do you see electric mobility market of India? Do you have any investment plans for India? So actually, yes. So we invested in 7 Israeli startups and 1 Indian startup. So it's funny that you're asking this because this is the only investment we did outside of Israel so far. We're planning now to invest more in US startups and in European startups. So we do have plans. In case you have some interesting startup to introduce me, I'll be more than happy to meet. Okay, I see here question by Ariv. I understand the trends as a technology. The technology is there, but infrastructure, third countries, maybe even OECD countries may not be able to catch the gap. How do you think it will be solved? Yeah, so I believe, Yariv, that this is going to be solved obviously by the municipalities and the governments themselves. If the governments will not spend money, it's very hard for me to believe that by, if I as an outside investor will invest, if it will help. I think that it should be a combined, mission, both for foreign investors to invest in these countries and help them to catch up the pace, right? And also municipalities and the countries themselves. They will have to spend money and resources if they want to keep up and be part of this modern world. So this is how I see it, at least. I hope it answers your question, but it's definitely concerning. I have some devil's advocate comments, not question. Okay. Avner, thank you. I'm not sure I understand, but
All right, so I think it's better to talk because I apologize up front. It's going to actually sort of change everything you said.
Okay,
You're ready for the challenge.
I'm ready for the challenge.
Okay, Doc. So first of all, if you look on the first 2 slides that you presented, excellent, by the way, they actually show that the trend of the people are to have their own car. Now, look at it in another way. What's the difference between a car and a house? Are you going to share your house with everybody and say, okay, I'll use my house only when I want, and then when I move to another place, I'll use another house? No.
Airbnb are doing it. There are a lot of apps today for renting houses.
Airbnb are not doing it. Airbnb are replacing the hotels, not your house. You don't, because Airbnb is existing, not even one person in the world gets rid of his own property, of his own house or apartments. So it's different, okay? And I'm going to that, by the way, because I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the basis, as far as I see, the basis of your presentation is assuming that actually the cars or the vehicles are being used for moving from point A to point B, meaning from work to home and from home to work. Look at and that's referring to your Airbnb. Look what happens in the rented car business. Before or after the corona, today when you go anywhere, there is a huge problem to get the rented car because they get rid of it. But the demand is here, so people need it because the cars, the vehicles are not only being used for point A to point B. People are going to vacations. People are going to a variety of places. Now, all of these results, all of the resolving ideas that you mentioned are nice as a science fiction, but they're not practical. I'll give you two examples. One, all these flying saucers, okay? They're very nice. However, it's not just regulatory. You mentioned about the problem of regulation. It's not only a meaning of regulation. It's a completely different story. Let's assume that there will be many of them. There should be routes. There should be rules. There should be pilots. There should be rules for that. There should be parking place because eventually they have to land somewhere. So they cannot land anywhere in the world, okay?
I
So
agree.
it's not a regulation issue. It's by far much more than that. Then let me see. I just wrote to myself plenty of items. I don't want to take it too long. So I'll go to my conclusion. And I think this is the major mistake of all these people who are developing all this automotive and the mobility. People are talking about autonomous cars. With all due respect, I'm a great disbeliever on autonomous car and give another lecture about it. So let's skip it. But bottom line, referring to our discussion, the autonomous car do not remove or do not reduce the amount of cars on the road, okay? They probably theoretically resolve the problem of the car accidents, which is important by itself. But again, I'm not going to get into this discussion. But what is the problem? The problem is not the communication between the cars and the cars among themselves. The problem is the infrastructure. You mentioned a lot, is good reason. The infrastructure. I think that you as an investor and in the community that deal with mobility in general, they should emphasize on the communication between the infrastructure and the cars, meaning traffic lights, meaning smart roads, meaning smart parking places. People are spending tons of time in order to find out parking places. So increase the amount of parking places, because here's the problem. There is a mismatch between the amount of tools, cars, vehicles, and the infrastructure. For some reason, the community decided that we have to deal with the cars. I say, and you can argue with that, of course, that the emphasis should be on the infrastructure. There are some cities around the world that already have smart traffic lights, and the traffic is by far better. By the way, much less money, much easier, much faster. Focus on that. Forget about all these automotive cars. So I'll stop here.
Avner, first of all, thank you for these notes and you know, I totally agree with most of what you said. So let me kind of go back to the main points you said, just to kind of give an answer for that. And if I forgot something, please go back to it. So regarding the autonomous car and the infrastructure. So I totally agree with you. This is a force, and as I have a slide about it. So mobility cannot go alone, right? We cannot only invest in smart mobility only. So it should be also connected to energy, okay? The source of energy, how to reduce the time of, you know, charging your car, and also infrastructure, which is parking, smart roads, smart traffic lights. All these things are connected. So I see this as a whole ecosystem that needs to learn how to work together. So if until now I was only, until this year's, for example, all the companies that were invested in automotive and mobility only, we understand that it's not going to work alone, right? We need the other factors in order to make it work. So I totally agree with you on that. But I can tell you that autonomous cars are here already, and they're going to stay here. It's not going to reduce the number of cars on the road. Maybe yes, maybe not, probably not. But what it's going to allow is to provide a better experience, driving experience. So you would be able to learn during a ride, you will be able to hear the music you like, personalization, and a lot of services that are going to give you a better, so it will be an attraction, right? You would be able to sleep if you want. So this is how I see it, as a service to the driver. Yes, Avner.
I said I don't want to get into the autonomous car because that's an issue by
Okay.
itself, but I'll give you 2 points. One, the autonomous car will delete from the world in the first war, because the next war, if, I hope that will never happen, but if all the cars will be autonomous, then the next war will not be with even one bullet. One hacking stop immediately the entire country. That's a disaster, and that's one point. The other point, even the best autonomous car, today there is no really level 5, but
Yeah.
still, let's assume that there will be. Now, what will happen? Still, even in the level 5, there are still sometimes that the driver has to interfere because of a variety of reasons. Okay, now, how can you expect these times that the driver has to be to interrupt is in emergency cases? In other words, the driver has to be very, very well trained. How can you expect the driver to be trained if most of the time the car drives by itself, and then you expect the driver to take control in the worst case? It's not going to happen. But again, we can have a different discussion about autonomous.
We will argue on that later on.
Yes.
And actually, to interject also, Tomar has something to add to this conversation as well. So Tomar, please feel free to interject as well.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Navner. First of all, Anna, thank you very much for this fascinating and interesting presentation. I really enjoyed it. So follow up on Avner's debate, if I may. There is a debate surrounding around the relationship between infrastructure and the auto tech industry. Recently, I've been in a conference that basically say that the people are saying that the auto tech industry does not rely on smart infrastructure. That's the way that they plan the future vehicles, the future cars. So 2 questions. First of all, as an investor, do you, and that's a follow-up on Avner, do you consider investing in smart infrastructure? And the second part is, I saw that you mentioned that you are investing right now currently in the aftermarket solutions. Why did you choose to focus on that part?
Okay, so we have here 2 main questions, so let me address each of them. So the first one is that Mobilen Ventures decided to focus on the aftermarket because this is the partners we have in the fund. So it's much easier for us to help startups with the channels that we are more strong with, right? So if, for example, we are working with Nexus, which is the largest ITG, and we work with Mitsubishi Corporation and Delphi Borg-Warner and a lot of tier 1s and fleet operators around the world. So when I invest in a startup, it's much easier for me to help him through this channel of the aftermarket, unlike just go and tell him, okay, go to the really long cycles of OEM that might take you between 3 to 5 years until you actually embed your product with the OEM. So we are not telling startups don't go to the OEM. It's really not what we're saying, but we're telling the startups, look, guys, we can help you through the aftermarket because we have the connections there and the relationships, and you can start sell tomorrow. And we are working with faster revenues. We believe in that model that helps startups to grow faster. So this is the reason. I hope it answers your question. And the second question was about the infrastructure, right?
Yeah, the infrastructure side.
So actually, our latest investment was kind of what was an infrastructure investment. We invested in a startup named Kapau that are doing wireless charging for warehouses, actually. So it's even a bit logistics infrastructure, kind of. So if it answers your question, yes, we're interested also in infrastructure and logistics and other domains that are not just pure automotive.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tomer.
Anna, one more remark. You know, I was very unpolite. Before my remarks, I enjoyed your presentation. Your presentation was great. The
Thank
fact
you,
that I
Avner.
disagree, it's nothing to do with the presentation. Okay, just to make clear.
Thank you very much, Avner, and I highly appreciate it. If there was silent and no comments, I was really offended. I'm really happy that you're talking with me and asking questions. That's the best for me. So I appreciate it.
I'll be happy, by the way, I'll be happy to, I'm not in this field, okay, just to make clear. I'm in a completely different field. And I'm inventor and a great believer in innovation. So don't misunderstand. I'll be more than happy to meet with you and to have a further discussion, because I think it's a very, very, very important, crucial item for our lives. So I'll be happy to do it on one-on-one. You know, we don't want to take the time of the others, but I appreciate and like your presentation.
I'll be more than happy. Avner, you have here my email. I'll be more than happy to schedule a coffee.
I don't actually. I don't have your email.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Ori? Yes.
Uri. Yes.
Uri.
So, yeah.
Hi, Ori.
Hi. So also I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
I was wondering about the effect of telepresence, augmented reality, the metaverse, and how is that taken into account?
I believe that this is going more to the experience, right? The services we can provide. And I think it's going to work very well with the autonomous driving, because basically, even though Avner will not agree with me, but when you have an autonomous vehicle driving, then you have a lot of time, right? So instead of just sitting in your car and paying attention to the road, you can play a game, right? So gaming will be very strong in the services that will start to be in the cars, and augmented reality or others. So all these things are probably going to be in these areas, from what I see, you know, how this market goes. I know a few Israeli startups in these fields of gaming and driving and things like that, simulators. So I believe that once the autonomous levels will go up to level even 4, so half of the time we will drive, and then half of the time maybe when we're stuck in a traffic jam, so we would be able to lose control and the car will drive by itself. So this is the places where we will start to see the car that knows us already, obviously, providing us services that will make this experience much better than just sitting bored looking at the road.
Yeah, but this is on the one hand, right? But you have the other hand, which is the need for driving and telepresence, and all the experience coming into your home actually reduce the need for you to go from one place to another.
You mean like to not to go to places. So look, I believe that people will always need to go to places. I can imagine some people that will just stick into their rooms and do a lot of Zoom calls and work from home, right? So today we don't have a lot of reasons to go, but even the doctors, right? You can book a meeting with a doctor from your home. You don't have to go to the doctor even, and you can order groceries. But still, people, I think, in my belief, people would still want to go to travel, want to go visit their family. So I think this will not go away from the world. Hopefully, I really hope for humanity that people will still love nature and meeting other people. I hope so. It will stay with us.
I hope so too, Anna. I'm with you. That was great, and actually that was in a great Q&A. I'm very grateful for all of your participation, and Anna, you took the challenge on like a champ. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you very
Well,
much.
on behalf of Paul Merage and the Merage Institute, we thank you very much for enlightening our Merage tribe, and we thank everyone for taking the time to join us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thanks a lot. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you,
very
Anna.
much.
I'll contact you.
Keep in touch. Thank you, Yariv. Thanks
You're
a lot.
welcome. Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.